All right. Ponce, thank you for joining me today on the Warriors Raised podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
One thing I'd love to start with is how did you get into fighting? Like, what was the beginning of this journey for you?
Yeah, so I think for me it started really young. Like my family, my dad, my mom, they were all really into, boxing and my dad's like a huge boxing fan. And I think growing up, I just kind of really always kind of was drawn to the spotlight, drawn to things that were, essentially people that were badasses, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, um, you know, Kobe Bryant. Didn't really matter the sport. I was just drawn to that, like I was always drawn to that like type of greatness. And specifically for MMA, I think partially was, wanting to fit in and feeling like I did get bullied quite a bit. A lot of it was maybe my own fault. Most cases, I was a strange kid, but um, I think a big part of it was, between family, growing up in dysfunction, and then just feeling like I wanted to be a badass my whole life just because I felt like I wasn't, and I felt fragile a lot of the times. And, between going to the Navy, wanting to try and be a Navy SEAL, and then MMA, mixed martial arts, and then jujitsu, and just, anything I've done in my life, I've always, you know, try to see how far I can take it, especially if it's something that I really enjoy, or love per se. So I think that's really for me where it started was, obviously family, and then it turned into, the way that I grew up, just in a lot of dysfunction, and then eventually it turned into, I think, something more internal, where it was just wanting to be, I guess, not accepted, because I knew that people wouldn't accept me. It was just more of I didn't want people to punk me anymore, and I wanted to be the guy that would people would look at and be like, yeah, don't fuck with that guy. So I think that's a combination of everything, over time, and obviously it's developed into something much deeper and bigger for me now.
Mhm. Would you say that coming into the MMA environment was like finding yourself in an environment where you felt more at home?
Yeah, I think it's because for me it's like it's a controlled chaos, right? Like I don't do well staying idle. I don't do well like just not having things to do. And if I don't have things to do, I'll find things to do that are very destructive to my life. So for me, it's just the way I channel that chaos, and it's all the chaos I need now. I'm 32. When I was in my 20s, it filled a little bit of it, but I enjoyed a lot more of the chaos outside of fighting. But for now, like I said, it's more of a controlled chaos, something I can go into and know that it's any day can be different. It's the same stuff every day, the same routine, but it's different every time I'm in there sparring, grappling, moving, training. I'm just always developing, learning something new. So I think that's more of what it's kind of become for me.
Mhm. Cool. You've done a lot of fighting recently. Do you have like a number? Do you know how many fights you've had so far?
Let's see, this year, I've only had one MMA fight this year, but I've had two boxing, and I've had probably three or four good like big competitions with jujitsu where I've gotten like between nationals and stuff like that. So pretty active. First part of the year, I was getting active. I had the cage jujitsu match against the big guy. So I think like just overall competition fights combined, probably 7 to 8, maybe more this
Mhm.
year.
Nice. That's just this year. In
Yeah.
all of your fighting, in all the like matches you've had, do you remember one that was like the hardest or most grueling or where you had to dig the deepest?
Yeah, it's actually on YouTube. You can watch it. It's me versus Glenn Baker, WFF MMA. This was a really interesting point in my career, but I wasn't doing the best mentally, and I wasn't training the way that I should have been. Excuses aside, obviously, it was one of the best fights that Arizona probably had seen. We had fight of the night.
Ponce's dazed. Baker's tired.
This is the longest round of these men's lives. And they are giving this crowd their money's worth. I know you folks at home are not sitting down for Andres Ponce versus Glenn Baker.
Baker's against the fence. Beautiful kick by Ponce.
No
That's
one's
what
going to
he's
sign
got.
to fight these guys after this.
it was like the moment. It was a fight where I was supposed to come in. I thought I was going to come in and just beat him up first round, get it done. And I came in and it was a humbling fight. I got dropped. The first round got rocked, and second round I came back, won the second round, and the third round, he almost knocked me out, like one punch away from the referee stopping it. And I dig deep, got him off me, almost knocked him out. We went back and forth in that round, exhausted, tired, and that's probably the biggest moment as far as like having to dig deep and realize like who I am as a fighter, and realizing that I do have that that drive, or that extra gear, you know. Despite like with my career and where it's been, it's ups and downs, but I would say that moment to this day, people still talk about it. Me, and when I see Glenn in passing every now and then, every so often, we talk about that fight. So I would probably say that moment for sure.
Cool. Have you ever been in a fight where everything went like really, really well? Like how it's kind of a strange question, but I feel like there is so much chaos in combat, and I'm curious if you've ever experienced that.
One fight, yeah, I would say probably it was probably the fight on it. I can't remember if it was right before or right after that. I think it was right before that. And I fought this kid named Chris. Mind you, everything went right in the fight, luckily, but before the fight, a couple of days before, I had caught bronchitis. I was sick. I remember being in the back with an inhaler, just like struggling to breathe. And we were making jokes like, yeah, I just got to, go out there and end this fight early. And sure enough, I think it was like a 15-second knockout. Came in, hit him with a right hand and put him out. And I would say that's about as perfect as something can go. Take zero damage, move around, hit him with the punch. I worked the whole camp, lands the first thing that lands, and didn't have to deal with my lungs or anything like that. So I'd say that was probably the only fight I can imagine in my head that's gone the way I can picture them going.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you lean on in terms of like mindset, belief that you keep returning to that keeps you going, keeps you steady in showing up and persevering?
Yeah, obviously, God's at the center of everything. For me, I don't always like display a lot of my faith, and I'm not preaching and stuff, but one day maybe that's my calling. But for now, I know that putting my faith in God has been probably the biggest thing over the last couple years. For me, it's letting go of the expectations. I've always had a lot of expectation and pressure on myself for things, and I still do in a sense where I know what I want to accomplish. But for me now, it's not necessarily pressure. It's knowing that I'm going in the right direction, and God, at the end of it all, is going to unfold His hands and show me, that He had a straight flush the entire time, and that the cards that I was dealt and that I thought that I needed to play aren't necessarily always the right move. So now I just know that if I keep my head down, I train hard, keep working every day, what's supposed to happen is going to happen, right? As long as I'm doing what I need to, I'm living my life the way that I say that I'm living it, and I train hard, and put my faith in God, then at the end of the day, that's all that I can do, right? I've let go of really the uncontrollables, the things that I can't control. I've always been a person that's always like struggled with my life when I can't control things, and I fixate on them. And so now I'm very, very good about letting things go that don't serve me a purpose or don't serve me well, any thoughts, any feelings, emotions. And at the end of the day, it's for me is winning's very, very important. It's defines essentially my work and what I'm doing, right? It's not everything, but for me it is at the same time. Wanting to be the best at what I do in all aspects, right? Not just obviously competition, but I know the skill set that I have. I know how good I am. I've had thousands of people tell me the potential that I have. So for me, I think now it's just living up to that potential, and proving everybody that believed in me right. A lot of people want to sit here and try to prove everybody wrong, and I've gotten over myself on that aspect. At the end of the day, that's ego, and I've learned to really like bury my ego in a lot of cases, in most cases. And I try to just lead by example, lead myself by example, most importantly, because if I can't help myself, I can't help anybody else. So I just try to be the best that I can, and so far, it's okay. I have my hard days. I have my days that maybe aren't as good, but I know compared to how I used to handle them, I handle them a lot better now. And I'm very good about just nipping things on the bud, let it bother me for 5 minutes or so, and I'm on to the next thing, because at the end of the day, what's important to me is improving martial arts and winning, right? So if it doesn't bring me closer to that, then I figure out a path to get back on that track.
I love that. Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
I'm curious if you have in your, like, I know you've had different coaches for different things. Have there been any coaches or mentors along the way that were really like deeply impactful in terms of like keeping you on this journey or helping you become the fighter that you are today?
Yeah, good question. I think every coach in my process has played a big important role, right? I don't necessarily want to give too much credit one either which way. If anything, I give myself the credit. I've always found a way to come back and get better, but the skill set, the some of the attributes and some of the habits I have picked up from different coaches. I've gotten to train with some of the best coaches, best fighters in the world. So the best thing about that is I've been able to acquire a little bit of everything from everyone, and even if it was a bad coach, like I learned how not to be for myself as a coach now that I'm getting into my coaching era, and I'm starting to have a bunch of young fighters and jiu-jitsu competitors underneath me. um I'd say that's probably the big thing, is I've taken something from everyone, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I've always felt like I've learned, and I think that's what's made me the martial artist that I am now, why I'm pretty well rounded in all aspects. I've given everything a try. I've worked with great boxing coaches. I've worked with great mixed martial arts coaches. Obviously, my coach now that I'm with, Javier Torres, has had a big impact. He took me in when I didn't really have a gym. I didn't know what I was going to do with my career. He's helped spark a lot of motivation and who I am, and he's helped me reach potential for myself that I felt that I didn't have. So he's a tough hard ass sometimes, but I'd say he obviously more so recently, one of my jujitsu coaches, Steele, has obviously been a big impact in my development over the last couple of years. Just an overall good person, and I've seen my jujitsu specifically elevate substantially in the last couple years since I've been able to, go into his gym and learn from him. So I think obviously my coaches recently have been a big impact. And then, like I said, everybody from the past has all been a contribution to my development and my success for sure.
Mhm. How do you find it being training to fight and compete, and then also now you said you're coaching more. Like, how do you find that is impacting you or influencing your game?
Yeah, good question. It's not easy. I'll say that. I know that a lot of different competitors and coaches have different mixed views on it. I truly feel that I'm kind of in the more in like a team leader, team, captain type of role right now. I obviously teach jujitsu. I do it to help me with my development, my teaching. So I haven't taken full reins. I obviously have my performance and nutrition business that I do on the side as well, where I have some athletes that I work with. But it's not easy, I'll say that. There's a lot of selflessness that has to go into being a coach, and as a fighter it's a lot of selfishness. So it's being able to turn one thing off and then turn the other one on. When I'm coaching and it's my competitors, I'm there, it's all about them, right? There's no ego for me. It's not about me. It's not about what I've accomplished. It's about how can I help this person develop and be the best version of themselves in their sport and in their life that I possibly can, right? I don't want to just give people moves and give them, different sequences to practice. I want them to have that, but also, knowledge and experience from my personal experiences in life. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not anything special, but I have, some knowledge in how to do things, how not to do things, how to go about your career. And for me, like that's the important stuff that I try to teach and push people, and especially if they say they want to compete and be that competitor at that level that they say they want to be. um, there's obviously steps, and just showing them what that path looks like, and are you really ready for this path. So I think for me it's kind of, that's why I'm kind of dipping my toes in the water right now. I have some students, I have some people that I work with that I spend my time with, but like for now, right now, right, I'm in camp. Like there's not a lot of time I can dedicate to other people. Like I love coaching, teaching my classes, but a lot of the extra time that I have, it can't go to other people, it has to go to me. So it's just knowing that balance, like when it's time to turn it on, when it's time to turn it off. It's not always the easiest thing. I know I've seen my coaches struggle with it, that try to compete a little too long. I've seen other friends, coaches, competitors that they kind of get caught in between that block, right? Like where do they augment their time? So for me, I have that very distinction. Like if my competitors are in competition and they have comps coming up, I don't really schedule anything around that time frame. I'm still training, I'm still staying active, I'm doing what I need to, but I try to just schedule my stuff around or away from my competitors just to, like I said, so I can give them 120% of my undivided attention. I don't want to be at a tournament running to compete and then my guy's competing and I'm trying to run back, and I see it all the time. And I just don't think that's fair to the students. And I think they should, get a coach that gives them 120% when they're there.
Yeah, I've watched that too, and it's really challenging because it's like a different gear in your brain, right? To be
Yeah.
fighting or to be cornering, coaching. Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
I'd love to ask. I'm gonna check. Yeah, I'm just checking the time.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I'd love to ask you if you could fight anybody in the world, and you had, say, like 3 months to prepare with whatever kind of training, nutrition, etc., that you felt you needed. Who would it be and why?
Um, yeah, I mean, realistically, honestly, I'd be anybody that would give me an opportunity to fight on a big show. Honestly, if it's an opportunity against some dog for the Contender Series, if it's somebody for Bellator, or not Bellator, but World Series or PFL, um, that's what's kind of matters to me. I guess in a perfect world, right, I would be in the UFC fighting for a top 10 guy, but the world's not perfect, unfortunately, and I have some steps to take if I'm ever going to even go in that direction. So for me, it's whoever they put in front of me, whoever wants to sign on the dotted line, that's going to get me that W, that's going to get me to the next step, that's going to help me improve. That's who I'll fight.
Yeah, awesome. What's next for you like what's coming up for you, and what would be a actually, let me reframe. What would be like a great next step for you in your fighting career?
So don't really talk too much about my long-term plans, obviously, but short-term, long-term, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, my goal is to compete, stay competing. Obviously, I'm going to compete in jiu-jitsu for a while, but for MMA, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep giving everything I have till 35, 36. 36 will be the cap, you know. And in those few years, I just want to see what I can do, start living up to my potential. I see myself being able to put together, 5, 6, 7, 10 wins, and we'll go from there, right? Once I get my record back to where I need to get it to, it's not going to be easy. But more for me, it's just to prove, again, to the people that believed in me and to prove to myself. And from there, once I can put together 5, 10 wins in a row, we'll see, what opportunities arise. And even in the process, I get opportunities all the time just because of my past and the fights that I have had and the people that I have beaten when I've been on. So I think the opportunities are going to be endless. It's just a matter of just doing the right things, keep winning fights, and once we get to the end of that road, we'll see what options we have and where God kind of leads me, and I'll trust that process once we get there.
Yeah, wonderful. I really love that what you shared about like proving the people right who believed in you. That's just so great.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question before we wrap up. I know you got to go, but
Very good.
is there anything that you would say to yourself if you were, I don't know, like young man, like 15, 16, 20, somewhere in there, that, or like anything that you needed to hear back then that would have helped or made a difference in your journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll even say it from the point that I speak to, as far as like the younger generation that I help coach and I train with and stuff. I think the biggest thing I would tell myself is don't get caught up in all the flashiness, the beauty of it, the social media, the end destination, right? For me, it was always seeing oh man, I want that, or I want the flashy cars, or I want people to want to be around me. And I got caught up too much in that versus the everyday work, right? The shit that sucks, the getting up early, the grinding, the 2, 3 workouts a day, putting in 4, 5, 6 hours when you don't want to, having to work out when you're sick, having joints completely dislocate and having to get in the gym the next day or the day after. That's the work. That's the stuff that you got to fall in love with, right? And that's the stuff that makes you really feel alive. One thing I tell everybody is, pain's a privilege. Pain is a privilege. It makes you realize that this is real. This is you're alive and you're doing something that, is beautiful and destructive at the same time. So I would tell myself when I was younger to not focus on the little details and wake up every day willing to give it your 110%. The partying, the women, the all the booze, all that stuff's always going to be there. It's going to be the same people doing the same things, but what's not is going to be there is your youth, and your ability to go after something, especially when it's physically demanding as MMA. Um, I would tell myself to be all in and just delete all the noise that you possibly can, so that way by the time you are 30, uh, you know, 35 years old, you have everything you want in this life, and then you're on to other ventures. So I think that would probably be the biggest advice that I would give my younger self is don't get distracted. Don't that and that's the biggest thing. It sounds so easy, but it's this world is so distracting nowadays. Even for me at times it wants to pull me off course, and I just have to remember, like, no, this is what I do. I have one little saying that I tell myself now every time I feel like I don't want to do something, or I feel like am I questioning something, or whatever it is. I always say, what would Kobe do? And Kobe Bryant, and that's actually, for some reason, that's just a trigger for me because I've studied a lot of the greats. I've studied outside of just MMA, right? Like, I've studied the mindset of people who've reached the pinnacle of where they're at in their sport, and I read a lot of their books, and that's a big part of it, right? Is understanding, like, from a mental aspect too. As a kid, it's like you have to know what it's like to think the way these people think because you have a blueprint, and then from there, it's your determination. You have to be honest with yourself and say, do I have the capability? We all have the capability, but are you have the willingness to be able to put in that type of effort towards something that you care about? And it's okay if not, but that's where you can have that distinct conversation with yourself and determine, okay, I'm not willing to compete and put myself at that level to get X result, right? And that's okay. But I think coming to that realization and understanding, like, it does take some bit of insanity to, keep driving and driving and driving and driving and beating your head against the wall when you feel like the wall's not moving. Um, so I think that's all, it all goes hand in hand, mindset, understanding, discipline, right? Doing this, it's okay that you do the same things over and over and over again, and that you say no to hanging out, no to partying, and no to things that don't serve you and your goals, right? I think sometimes people get caught up in that, where it's like I used to feel like I was crazy, because I'm in the house every weekend. I'm not going out. People are like, why don't you want to hang out with us or do this or do that? And I'm in the house just going over stuff in my head. How can I get better? I don't know. I think that's a big important part of it. We're too socialized now. I think everybody thinks they have to have a group that they belong to. And I think the most important thing is you have to be okay with yourself and be okay loving yourself, and okay knowing that if nobody else is here to cheer for you, that you can cheer for yourself all the way through the process. Because people will cheer for you in the beginning and they'll cheer for you in the end, but in the middle, everybody's dead quiet because nobody cares, right? At the end of the day, about the process, all people care about the results. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just working your absolute hardest, keeping your head down, staying disciplined, and you know don't take people's criticism to heart. People are going to have opinions. Their opinion of you is none of your business, and just keep fucking grinding until you see the result that you feel you've gotten, and then from there, plan on to the next thing.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that.
Mic drop.
Yeah. No, really. That's I know you have a time crunch. Is there anything else that you want to share with us today? Anything else you want to dive into?
No, no,
That's
that was
pretty
good.
open-ended. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the questions. I appreciate you having me on. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's nice to talk, and I always have a lot on my mind, and if people ask me, I'm more than open. If not, usually I just kind of let people be. But you know, I have a fight November 15th. It's going to be in Tucson against Ed West. Anybody that's able to make it out or stream, or we'll probably be streaming it. I'm the main event. It's going to be a big fight. Ed West is a great fighter. You know, he's making a comeback after a few years hiatus. I'm looking to get back in the win column. You know, I'm desperate for a win, so I'm training hard, and you know, I appreciate all the support people give me, and I'm going to make sure I go out here and do my thing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ponce.
Of
It's
course.
like
Thank
such
you,
an honor
Veronica.
to have you here today.
No,
And
I appreciate you.
yeah, I appreciate you too. So great to see you as well.
You too. We'll talk
Yeah.
soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.